of owning a cafe, and other heroic deeds. Bible Word the Cicero. Chapter 90. Toshinori and Shota's Date Night. One of many. The rest of the week flew by. Oh, you're doing a great job, kiddos, but I think we need some bonding. Tadeo-dan gave me some great biodegradable stuff that we can put into Mimi-chan's flower beds tomorrow morning. What do you think? It's pretty cool, right? And with Saturday morning here already, he'd allowed the local pros and his teens to help the tots decorate for the Aizawa party they'd have in the evening. Moroni? Can I help you hang it, please? Oh, and Nimoni said she needed to speak to you about something, too. The customers also had wished them well, handed them cards and little gifts to celebrate his two oldest wards becoming his family officially. Kachan, Muriel-senpai wants to know if you're going to eat your last pop print cookie or not. The special cakes Tomra and Dabi wanted were cooling in his kitchen's chiller, and many of their friends had brought a range of snack for them to share, too. Tell him he can have it so long as he shares it with Tuzu-chan. She didn't get to have one yesterday because she had to go home early, so it's only fair. He'd also set aside a large bowl of takoyaki batter for when the party began at 1800, as Tamaki and many of the others favored those hot savory balls of batter. There were muffins, cupcakes, pies, and sandwiches ready as well, of course. Guys, we need to start watching the vegetables for Shoni. Oh, and someone needs to help Tomoni with the cat litter trays. 1, 2, 3, not it! The cafe was, as always, a lively place filled with laughter, cheer, and relaxation. The middle schoolers and high schoolers were coming by more regularly, and his profit margin was healthy. What? 1, 2, 3, not it! So healthy, in fact, that he'd even splurged a little. There was a video game that his oldest wards had been talking about buying, and after they got it, they realized that they needed an online membership to access the best features, and so paying monthly, he'd gotten it for them.
You guys, we all promised to help out with the feline family. So we are gonna do the little trays for the money.
He'd also snagged some premium vanilla pods, demerara sugar, and balsamic vinegar. Soo-chan's right. Go on then, Ki. If you want a cat of your own one day, you'll have to do this all by yourself, you know? And it wasn't just the Noraneko doing well either. Don't act like you didn't want it just now, Ochako. I'm on to you. Now Masa had stopped by yesterday with Nezu, Hawks, and Twice. The police force officer had been the bearer of some excellent news. Mirai and Toshinori's legal team were starting to make headway in terms of getting Todoroki Rei better access to the outside world. Sadly, due to the name of the disorder which had led her to harm her youngest child, she couldn't be cleared to be around minors just yet. However, after being reunited with her son, the woman was newly energized. She was determined to improve, to fully engage with the clinical program Umei-chan's son-in-law had offered when he'd provided a valued second opinion on the state of her mental health and well-being, which meant that in a matter of months, if she continued to show signs of recovery, and if she thoroughly engaged in her counseling sessions, then she would be eligible for day release, with regular visits in ward from Dabi himself and Tomra on the lead-up. The look on the flame quirk user's face when he'd been told as much was like poetry.
Hi, nice grandma ladies. We saved some scones for you, and the knitting nook has already got lemonade set up on the table. Oh, and this is Tamaki-senpai. He's like super shy, but also super cool, too. He'll come and say hello properly in a minute, but we all have to be patient with him, okay?
Similarly, Jintan and Keigo were flourishing under Nezu's guidance and care. You sure you don't mind holding my hand all the time? I'm not bothering you too much, am I? The other three were, of course, more orphans snapped up by the system and into the former Project Reformation. The first person he'd been told about was Usagiyami Rumi. Then there was Tatsumama Ryuko, and finally Manama Nato, who was the same age as his tats. That bastard Matsuri had fished him out of the foster care system a year ago, and according to the soon-to-be principal, the poor boy had developed a superiority complex a mile wide. He claimed that he didn't need friends, that he didn't need anyone other than himself. He'd regarded Nezu as the white-furred man's side, his head shaking sadly before smiling around his cup of gold pips imperial.
I figured if anyone could set the poor lad straight, it'd be you and our friends here at the Stray Cat Café Shouta.
They do their level best.
You kidding, Tamaki-senpai? Aside from Gotchan, there's no one else I'd rather hold hands with, you know? And besides, getting to make you feel safe makes me feel really special, you know?
God! He was beyond glad that his smaller friend now had them under his care. They'd settled into the dorms, met all of the staff, and were very much looking forward to being classroom assistants in the first instance, before deciding what they wanted to do with their lives. Certain members of the Public Hero Safety Commission had reportedly been quite pissed off about the arrangement. They'd shut up pretty quickly when Mirai and Toshinori had flexed their physical and legal muscle, though.
Whoa, Hitoshi! You really don't mind me keeping that cat-eared hoodie? I don't know what to say, but thank you, really. It's super snuggly.
And speaking of his soon-to-be date, the blonde had been bursting to tell him about what they'd be doing tomorrow evening, but had been foiled at every turn by his former sidekick, the local pros, his teens, and deaths as well.
You're welcome. Shoni is always treating me with those kinds of things, so I'm glad I could pass it along. Oh, hey, there's Gohaku-san. Come and say hi with me, okay? He's the best at meditation out of everyone who comes to the self-defense classes, so I'm sure he could give you some pointers. Oh, and be sure to say how pretty my son looks, okay? I think they might be dating, and it must be real hard to meet someone when you're their age, right?
Not that he minded, really.
He was just looking forward to having some more
alone time with a man that made his chest feel funny in the best of ways.
Yosh! Get him! Good morning, Kohaku-san! My son! My name is Tokino Mirio, and it's a pleasure to meet you both! Oh! My son! Where did you get such a beautiful dress from, eh? You look like a supermodel or something!
All in all, life was pretty damn good right now, wasn't it? Then when 1800 rolled around, the party began in earnest.
More speeches. Really.
He had been called upon again to stand before the majority of his community, his body dressed in his favorite pushing t-shirt and better pair of black jeans, his arms roped around the shoulders of the teens he couldn't love anymore if he'd physically sired them.
Okay. Fine.
He juggled at the room at large. Hitoshi diligently stood before them, a soft smile gracing his features.
So, what makes a family?
He began, his eyes fond.
To many people, that word is associated with blood, with set standards and rules, but as many of us know, you can't define such a wonderful thing so simply. It'd be irrational to try.
He chuckled, the sound reverberated around the room.
When I first met Dobby and offered him a place to stay, I told him that I wasn't really sure what a family was, and I didn't know really if I could provide such a thing.
He furthered, those turquoise eyes locking with his.
I had, of course, helped to raise and look after my care-center siblings, but approaching such a task as an adult wasn't something I ever thought I'd do.
He admitted.
That's why today, I need to thank him, Tomura and Hitoshi, for showing me what I'm capable of, and I need to thank all of you as well.
He grinned.
Together we might not make the most conventional standard of family, but I wouldn't give up any of you for the world.
He stated, a few of them gasping and cooing.
So, even though we come together right now to celebrate Dabi and his partner having all of the rights and protections a surname can give them, I'm sure that they'll both agree that all of us are tied and linked together in a way that not even shared blood can relate to.
He added, everyone nodding.
Therefore, I'd like to propose a toast, not just for them and their newfound freedom, but to us, to all of us. The struggles we've overcome, the progress we've made, and the future we're working to make better.
He called his lemonade glass raised next to a grinning Tomura's head.
Hear, hear!
The community chimed in together, and just like that, everyone started to mingle, chant, laugh, and eat. Fujita Sora and her husband were animatedly chatting with Mitsuki, Inko, and Kamanari Koji alongside Tsuyu's parents, whilst the Oraraka couple gathered with Nezu, Mirai, and his sidekicks to discuss the dorms Ryo had helped to build. Toshinori, Gran Torino, and the police force officers were eating their way through a table covered with muffins, with Mirio, Izuku, Katsuki, and Denki all trying to keep up with their pace, whilst Kohaku and Mai sat together in a booth across from Tomoko and Nemori, a plate of cookies shared between them. Then, in the gaming area, his wards were delightfully standing up to the online platform with Spinner, Itoshi, Tamaki, Eijiro, and the girls. Hisashi and Oboro, although they'd been there to help all day, had sadly been needed out and on patrol. They'd hugged him and the teens before leaving, with the bento each for their evening meals. Chuckling at the sight, he made his way back through his trusty service bar into the kitchen and snagged the special cakes from the chiller. If everyone liked them, then they may just end up on the menu full time, mightn't they? With Sunday came a visit to the detention house in Tokyo, where Kimiko was still diligently keeping her spirits up, studying hard, and helping herself and others on the road to rehabilitation. She'd gushed over the memory book, read her child's end-of-term school report, and the boy had wowed her with his exploits, adventures, new friends, and playful bet wins, too. Similarly, she'd asked about the cafe, cooed over the cat photos, and wished him all the very best on his date that evening. Sadly, he was going to need it, but not in the way his slightly nervous mother Henning had warned him about when he'd woken up that morning. Then, their visit ended, Dabi and Tomura were taking the Tat sightseeing, with Seiji and Izashi, the oldest blonde, having insisted. He'd also drive his wards home when they'd had their fill of the place and stay with them just in case. He, however, was hopping onto a train back to Musutafu, where Kenji-san would be waiting for him. Shigaraki's assistance was needed to catch a serial killer, a man who, by all accounts, was deranged. He called himself Moonfish, and he was obsessed with eating human flesh. Knowing that such a person was at large had made keeping his family in Tokyo for a while all the better. He'd similarly texted his community before the mainstream media released the police force's official statement to the masses, and although his quirk could have been helpful in apprehending such a threat, they all agreed that spreading their forces thin and stomping around a notoriously mountainous area wouldn't be as useful as knowing the bastard's movements, intentions, and motivations. Therefore, he was on his way to speak with someone who kept tabs on every villain, someone who enjoyed the psychology of evildoing almost as much as the acts themselves, someone who liked to hold grudges, and everyone apparently had had dealings with Moonfish before. According to a few eyewitnesses who'd survived to tell the tale, he'd attempted to steal the quirk which made the murderous prick such a threat, and they were all hoping that the killer, having escaped his clutches, the crime lord would assist them in finding him. Hell, he'd even whipped up a fresh batch of pies, a flask of lemonade, and a selection of muffins, as per the old bastard's request. Toshinori had known, this time, where he was going and why. They'd been texting the whole time he was on the train. He just hoped that chatting with Shigaraki would be enough to appease him. If this was the life of a pro hero, then he'd take his Monday morning rush all day long. Thank you. Ah, Shouta-kun, what a pleasant surprise this is. Having been ushered through security, the eatery owner soon found himself in his least favorite room, the smiling menace appraising him from where they regarded each other through quirk-resistant glass. Is it? You don't seem that surprised to me, he thought, his eyes narrowing a touch. You're looking quite stressed, my friend. Is everything all right? Oh, yeah. Other than a homicidal maniac running around taking lives because no amount of occupational therapy seemed to help him, everything is fine. He deadpanned, the other smirking at his quip, a chuckle leaving him as he inclined his head. Oh, do my ears deceive me? Are you a person who seems to believe rehabilitation is possible for everyone, finally admitting that just isn't the case? He tittered. My. Rolling his eyes, because he did not have time for this. The eatery owner settled himself into his chair and brushed out the creases in his blazer. At this rate, these fancy clothes would be all worn out, wouldn't they? I've brought you a little something extra today, he said after a beat, the older man blinking at him.
Tomra asked for some strawberry shortcake yesterday. He furthered. That's how I thought that might be a dessert you'd share once. He added with a shrug, would you like to know how he's doing? Or am I assuming too much to think that you'd care? The boy doesn't bring me up in conversation, I take it? He sighed, his tone more bored than anything else. It's a great pity, I think, that he's thrown all of his potential away to become an ordinary little dullard, playing house out of the sticks of a backwater place like Musutafu. He mused with a shrug. Does he still play with his family's hands, No, he replied evenly, his head shaking a little. We had them cremated. The ashes were placed together in an urn which we've buried in one of the flower beds outside our cafe. He told him, a sad little smile pulling his lips. Since none of us are particularly religious, we didn't know the service, but he could tend the roses that they're helping to grow. He shrugged. Speaking of growing, the stock markets seem to be doing very well. I know why you're here, the crime lord chuffed, those sharp eyes narrowing. Why not simply ask me? Because I'm waiting you out, he returned frankly. You've got no intention of telling me anything about moonfish in the first instance, otherwise you would have simply told the detectives when they woke you up this morning. He reasoned, his arms folding compassionately. Or better still, you would have told Almight when he asked you, so he could have rushed to the scene and captured him before he had the chance to kill anyone else. He continued, his tone blunt, his expression ruthlessly neutral. So, do you want to know about any particular sports team? How about manga updates? Or I could thrill you with some recipe ideas I've been toying with if you'd prefer. Bravo, my dear, the graying man admitted, that smirk reigniting. And should I give your friend some useful information, you'd be more agreeable to my terms and converse with me properly, I take it? Of course, he responded pleasantly. I'm not that big on sports anyways. After Shigaraki yawned and spoke aloud details concerning Moonfish's last known hideout and his greatest fear, an hour of conversation followed. Have you asked him about One for All yet? Do you know why he might be so keen on helping to raise those children and funnel them into the joys of procuring? Strangely, when we're talking, quirks rarely come up. In fact, the last conversation we had was about which type of chocolate was better to eat. A conversation that ended up with me trying to teach him what cocoa solids were and why they mattered. He totally played me. He just wanted to sample some of the special bars he knew I kept in the back. You're such an idealist, Shouta-kun. Why, here you are, still speaking with me, even though you have what you need. Surely there is something or someone who riles you, Tell me, what gets under your skin other than establishments whom overcharge for commodities, of course? It's funny you should ask, really. Up until a week ago, my honest answer would have been the vile woman who was allegedly in charge of the care center I grew up in, but now there is a man who I've met just the once personally, who has had a devastating impact on several people and someone who is very dear to me. Oh, do tell. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Sorry, Shigaraki-san, but due to the ongoing investigation, I can't say anything more than that. But, to put things mildly, I'd much rather be here and talking with you than ever having to speak with him again. No, the last thing I'd want to do when we next meet is talk. He's going to pay for what he's done. My. Then this man, whoever he is, has both my pity and my contempt. Do let me know how that reunion goes, won't you? Before he could finally get out of the oppressive building, his thoughts on better things. Kenji-san had told him that Moonfish had been apprehended and no one else had been hurt, his kids were okay, and Toshinori had texted him not long ago. All might. I'll pick you up at 1900, Shouta-kun. Wink. Crassus, merrily abated, he returned home, changed his clothes, washed. Hey guys, man, it's good to be home. And had an impromptu catnap in the cat enclosure, his body discovered an hour or so later by Hisashi and his boys. He'd seen the photographs, and yes, they were going on their website. Then the adult classes postponed. He'd eaten with his family and spent the rest of the afternoon doing prep work whilst they entertained the cats. How 1900 came around so quickly, he'd never known. So, are you nervous? Blinking out of his thoughts, his fingers flying over the smart till, he cocked his head to where Tomra, Nabi, and Hitoshi were sitting. That. See, I told you he wouldn't be.
His youngest stated confidently.
So I believe you owe me that pack of pocket I know you're hiding in your coat pocket, Dobby.
He veritably chirped whilst the turquoise-eyed boy chuckled, fished them out, and handed them over.
Joke's on you, kid. I was gonna give them to you anyway.
He grinned, the 7-year-old taking the box with a luminous smile, shredding the cardboard lid, ripping the packet, and sharing them out.
Why would I be nervous?
He asked, his tone slightly cautious, a critical eye roaming over the outfit he'd put together from his meager wardrobe, a frown tugging his lips. He'd been told explicitly to dress casually, therefore he'd gone with his favorite black boots, a pair of black stonewashed jeans Namori had bought him, and the maroon cap-sleeved t-shirt he usually wore for training, because it really shows you off. Shit, Toshinori was a celebrity, wasn't he? Maybe...
Oi, I didn't ask you that to give you a conniption, you crazy nuts old guy.
His oldest ward stated, all three of them looking at him.
I was just making sure you were okay. Seriously, the guy's nuts about you. Oh, you could probably go on this date in a bin liner and he'd be all, you look fantastic, Shouta-kun.
He admitted, blinking once, twice, and 3 times together. The 4 of them then erupted into peals of laughter, with Tomura having to wipe at his eyes, Hitoshi's little fists hitting the table. Just as the man himself walked in, a bouquet of sunflowers cradled in his arms, his smile warm and warming further when he waved at them and tried to control his mirth.
Ah, here, there's a for you. Are you ready to go? No, you look fantastic, Shouta-kun.
Hilarious! Jumping into the older man's car, his body sinking into the butter-soft leather upholstery, he allowed a calming breath to leave him as he fastened his seatbelt, his hand offering a goodbye wave through the passenger window after a quiet Western radio show filled the vehicle whilst it pulled away from the curb.
Has been quite a day, huh?
He asked him, his raven hair shifting as he turned to observe the man driving them to their secret destination.
Made all the better by you, Shouta-kun.
The blonde returned, those neon eyes briefly meeting his before they returned to the road and the sparse early evening traffic.
I thank you for subjecting yourself to Shigaraki and his whims.
He furthered, his brows furrowing lightly.
I fear he only targets you so much because of how we all came to meet that day.
He sighed.
You shouldn't. I think you'll find he simply enjoys my magnetic personality, actually.
He quivered his elbow, giving the other side a little nudge, instantly dispelling the shadows he'd seen looming over him. He had to remind himself from time to time that Toshinori had been dealing with all for once since he was a teenager and had probably witnessed more evil, carnage, and horror at the hands of that man than even Tomura had. Well, he wouldn't let that bastard ruin their time together, especially not tonight.
I'm sure that's true.
The broader man returned as they merged into the freeway.
You certainly attract your fair share of danger and trouble, don't you?
He mused fondly, his tone warm. God, he could smell the other's delectable sandalwood cologne from here.
Well, that's all part of my charm, isn't it?
He tried to chuckle, his cheeks pinking a little as he looked back out of the window.
So, are you finally going to tell me where we're going? Yes. The other sniggered. I remember you telling me once in one of our first conversations how you enjoyed taking your siblings to the beach and wished that you could do it more often. So, there's a small private stretch of shoreline that I know of which is owned by a friend of mine. He revealed, we're going to park up in his driveway, walk down there, and enjoy a picnic together if that was too boring. Are you kidding?
He breathed, actually delighted.
Well, sounds perfect to me.
The driveway they cruised down was a mile long.
Here we are. What do you think of the house? It's pretty fancy, isn't it? Pretty fancy.
He repeated numbly, his brows crawling towards his hairline as he stared or gawped. Yes, definitely gawping. At the white western-looking mansion that was all sleek lines, highly polished glass, silver embellishments, and a huge fountain innocuously sitting before it. Holy shit! You could fit the Noroneko 4 times over into that kind of square footage.
I knew you'd like it.
The other beamed, his enthusiasm clearly gushing over the bewilderment he felt was cascading out of him in waves.
Would it be too bold of me to offer you my arm?
Blinking, his eyes rolling ruefully, he moved to the other's side as though it was the most natural thing in the world, his left hand lacing with the other's right, their eyes meeting amidst the almost tropical setting of the huge swaths of bamboo rustling and looming over them in the circular road which looped the fountain.
We have already kissed, so I think this kind of PDA is fine.
He murmured, that blush returning.
And I may or may not have been reading a book a certain bunch of meddling kids might have slipped me called Dating for Dummies.
He advised, the other regarding him owlishly, the smile he wore softening.
You've been...
He tried to say, his expression all but glowing.
Come on, the path we need to take is this way.
He murmured, his body walking towards a parting in the verdant green canes that wafted a little in the gentle breeze flowing up from the sea. Now that he focused, he could hear it. He could smell the salt and taste it in the air. Then it struck him that they'd be able to enjoy a sunset together, too. Walking Shouta through the step-stoned path, Toshinori couldn't help the thrill tripping up his spine as the man he'd grown increasingly more enamored with gasped when they cleared the bamboo to view the beach, his more slender form now hugging onto his arm as they looked out across the inky water where the sun was slowly creeping its way towards the waves. Looking down at the other, he felt his heart skip a beat.
Stunning,
he murmured, the other's clear joy and reverence spurring the word from his mouth.
Yeah, but a view like this is pretty... Oh.
Leaning down, he sighed into the kiss the younger man happily returned, his arms moving to embrace him, his hands hugging a waist that he could nearly encircle as their lips met. Oh, miss! He'd been dreaming about it ever since they'd parted at his theme park. For although inexperienced, Shouta was a quick study, and soon, both of them moaning a little, their mouths moved together, and feeling a little daring, he sent his tongue to gently swipe at the other's bottom. The little surprised squeak the other released was adorable.
Oh, you're so much sweeter than any of those amazing cakes you bake,
He complimented when they parted, the other's face beat red, his expression a little dopey.
And you're just a him.
He floundered bashfully before he huffed and nodded at the beach. Chuckling, they momentarily pulled away from each other to remove their boots and socks before, their hands coming together once more, they took to the warm, pale sands and began to talk as though they'd known each other their whole lives and longer. He couldn't have asked for anything more, really. Strolling down to the waves, Shouta couldn't believe just how relaxed he felt. How natural this all was.
Growing up as an only child to a single dad wasn't exactly easy, but when I saw all of the injustice around me, I knew I had to do something.
To be here, just the two of them. No fuss, no mither, no worries. Well, this was what he called a date.
Getting, into the water was really difficult at first, But Tadeo and Seiji were so sweet with him, and Takeo had promised to beat any sea ogres that could bother us away.
The only sounds outside of their talking were the hushed lapping of waves and a cry of gulls overhead. Out on the water they could see a few buoys, a small fishing boat, and then blue for as far as the eye could see.
Gran Torino's training was, to put it mildly, extreme. He had to get me ready, he had to toughen me up, or I'd die like she did. We'd never imagined, even for a second, that we'd be lucky enough to meet someone like you. Let alone you, as you are.
Then, after touring the shoreline 3 or 4 times, they walked towards a red and white checkered blanket where a wicker basket of goodies awaited them.
I hope that she can find some peace now, Toshinori. And I want that for you too, You're amazing, you're powerful, and you're totally committed to the safety and well-being of our whole country. But that doesn't mean that you should neglect yourself, alright? And with Shigaraki being where he is, it's not too selfish of me to ask that we spend more time together, is it?
The food had been delicious. 3 platters of iced sushi, followed by chocolate-covered strawberries, and a little box of salty licorice just for him. And they'd similarly enjoyed a few flutes of non-alcoholic grape cider, something the other had found in the States. Whilst he sat in the other's lap, their eyes turned towards the riot of colors announcing the sunset.
Oh, so to expect more time with you,
All in all, he'd rarely felt more content.
I would like that very, very much.
Considering he should be dead right now, Setsuno Toya supposed that skulking around some ridiculous, shiny, minimalist, expensive as fuck traditionally Japanese house wasn't so bad, even if there wasn't many shiny things for him to steal. But Jisagi had his whims, and what the head didn't know wouldn't hurt him. What the younger, clever brunette saw in the old wrinkly bastard, he'd never know. However, it wasn't for him to question. Not that he would, oh no. He had a purpose now. He had goals. He had opportunities. And sure, being a Yakuza didn't carry the kind of status that it had back in the good old days before quirks became the norm as opposed to the minority. But getting to carry around a katana, being sent up on missions, and being praised for his abilities was pretty cool. Similarly, stealing the house keys, which had a tab with the fucking alarm code attached to them on a key ring, it felt good. Because although some thieves preferred a challenge, he liked things being easy. He loved getting to thumb his nose at wealthy bastards who had more money than sense. Hell, he'd even been excited to stride into this place, his lips even whistling a tune as he snickered. That was, of course, until he'd started to snoop around properly. No jewelry, no artwork, no cash lying around. There weren't even any real signs that anyone lived here. The furniture was covered in dust sheets, the kitchen was empty, and the wardrobes, cupboards, and storerooms were cleared out. There weren't even any photographs on the walls. Dejected, he'd been just about ready to call it quite when he'd come across a locked door. Snickering, he picked the locks and thought that he'd finally hit the jackpot. However, after pushing the door open, his torch flitting about, he'd pouted and groaned in disappointment. It was just some fucker's office. The desk was clear. There were no vaults. There were no items of furniture outside of a few filing cabinets, and his hopes of finding hard drives, tables, or laptops, he set about lockpicking the desk's drawers to find nothing. Nothing but papers, bills, and... Blinking, his fingers snagging a manila envelope which had been marked quite cryptically with CD. Toya cocked his head to one side, opened the flap, and pulled out another piece of paper. Huffing, he cast a disinterested eye over the top before humming, his brows rising. This was a play-by-play of some kind of hero mission. Holy shit, he was inside the House of Pro? Damn, he'd have to mark this on the map and send some lower-ranking grunts back here to keep an eye on the place. Jisagi loved knowing where any of the bastards lived, and so he was willing to bet he'd get a few extra bottles of his favorite Junmai sake for this, and...
Wait! No fucking way!
Gasping, his insipid eyes widening, he looked at the alias CD and saw something pinned there that would make his young master beyond pleased.
CD's quirk appears to erase the quirks of others,
he whispered, his lips pulling into a wide, devious smile. So, his boss had been right. There were people in the world who could nullify the powers which had knocked people like his family off of the pecking order and into the gutter. Oh.
I'll probably get barrels of sake for this.